What's up, everybody? This is your boy Chainsaw. Listen, we've got a ton to cover. We've got an update on the Agape boarding school case. Marjorie Taylor Greene kicks a protester, a community organizer. Josh Hawley goes full Christo-fascist. Fetterman goes ham on Dr. Mehmet Oz. Senator John Kennedy apparently seems to think that Dr. Oz's brains are both sweet and delicious. More on that in a bit. Montana vows to ignore judicial orders against transgender students. We've got a very, very just mind-bending story that was covered on the Humanist Report. Mike Figueredo did a fantabulous job. It was honestly so captivating. I'm going to cover most of it here again, so we'll call it instant replay, right? School resource officer berates a teenage student. We do have the audio. Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis send 2 busloads of captured migrants to Kamala Harris's D.C. home in what appears to be a literal kidnapping. California Governor Gavin Newsom is having none of that and going on a full offensive. An 18-wheeler overturns on I-40 in Oklahoma, and you are not going to believe what spewed out all over the interstate. Fox News' Laura Ingraham seems to think that speaking up against white supremacy is simply a leftist ideology. This and hopefully some more on Cash, Coffee, and Chaos. So let's just jump right into it. So we had talked a little bit before about what was going on before this week regarding the Agape boarding school, but I wanted to offer a follow-up, of course, as promised. Not necessarily as soon as we knew, but my apologies. It's been a hell of a week. I won't even get into all that, but let's just jump right into this. So AP reports Missouri boarding school can remain open with oversight. Can you believe it? Dropped the ball. A Christian boarding school in Southwest Missouri can remain open despite the state attorney general alleging a dark pattern of behavior, a judge ruled on Monday. Boy, it took them long enough, didn't it? You know, it's, again, if you watch this show, if you've been following me on social media, if you've been following this story on social media, at least, you know, Missouri Twitter has been blowing up on this. I have been contacting, you know, other independent media sources. You know, it looks like we're one of the few who are actually covering the story, and obviously other folks here in the state, at least that I can tell. So, you know, maybe that's why this has taken so long to get traction. Honestly, as I mentioned before, it took me a while to pick up this story, and we're going to get into that here in just a bit. But so Judge David Munson's ruling allows continued round-the-clock monitoring of Agape boarding school in Stockton by Missouri child welfare workers. The school serves about 60 boys. The Kansas City Star reported that the state was prepared to call 2 former Agape students to testify on Monday. Agape attorney John Schultz told the judge there was no proof of any immediate or safety concerns for students, and allowing former students to testify was simply for publicity, the Star reported. Really? That's ballsy, bro. That's ballsy considering just what we've covered. The judge didn't allow the testimony, but scheduled another hearing for September 21st. Attorney General Eric Schmidt's office first sought to shut down Agape on Wednesday after learning that someone on the state registry for child abuse and neglect was actively working there. On Friday, the Attorney General's office filed an amended motion alleging systemic abuse. Agape's operation of a residential care facility must cease because it presents an immediate health and safety concern for the children residing at Agape, the court filing said. Stated it also accused Agape of providing the state with incomplete information concerning which adults have access to children. And we'd actually discussed, well, I don't know if we discussed it, but let's discuss it now. So there have been reports floating by one of the main, we'll say one of the folks who had actually brought this to my attention, and we'll discuss him in just a bit. But there have been reports floating around on social media and official court documents from the Attorney General's office regarding the prosecutor or on this case, who had basically pushed this case off onto the Attorney General. The Attorney General, of course, just dropping the investigation. So it's really fuzzy. Shaky ground for sure. These new developments are sadly consistent with the dark pattern. And I should include that the prosecutor had alleged that there were so many abuses that they couldn't possibly take the time or the resources to continue with the investigations or continue with the prosecution with the case on their end. At which point the attorney general, again, just simply seemed to shrug the story off, or shrug the case and the filings off. They're essentially both sides of the prosecution blaming each other, the attorney general and the prosecuting attorney. So you fucking tell me what's going on here, right? These new developments are sadly consistent with the dark pattern of behavior at Agape previously exposed by the AG's office and the Missouri Department of Social Services, the filing stated. Agape's website proclaims, "We're still open and accepting students." It calls itself a Christian boarding school that turns around rebellious boys. Mutton last week considered closing the school, but Agape officials told authorities that the person on the abuse and neglect registry was fired on Wednesday. So Mutton allowed the school to remain open with state supervision. Allegation, and of course they're going to be on their best behavior because that's how this works. Allegations of physical and sexual abuse at Agape and nearby Christian boarding school Circle of Hope Girls Ranch prompted a state law last year requiring stricter oversight of such facilities. Among other things, the new law allows state or local authorities to petition the court for closure of a facility if there's believed to be an immediate health or safety threat to the children. Last year, Agape's longtime doctor, David Smock, was charged with child sex crimes, and 5 employees were charged with low-level abuse counts. Schmidt's office contended that 22 workers have been charged and with more serious crimes. But in Missouri, only the local prosecutor can file charges, and Cedar County prosecuting attorney Ty Gaither has no additional employees has said no additional employees would be charged. Meanwhile, the husband and wife founders of Circle of Hope, Boyd and Stephanie Householder, face a combined 99 charges that include child abuse, neglect, sex crimes, and other counts. The school was ordered to shut down in 2020. Several lawsuits filed on behalf of former students also name Agape and Circle of Hope. And meanwhile, they're perfectly fine with leaving the school open. It's all good. Just make sure you kids act right. Absolutely just crazy. I mean, my God. And that's the cronyism that we've discussed in the past on this show that is very persistent in Missouri. The cronyism that led this to go on for as long as it has. Attorney General Eric Schmidt seems more to take more priority in suing schools over mask mandates and whatever other sort of bullshit that he can pull literally out of his ass than taking care of human trafficking. Meanwhile, we've shown, I believe it was Nurses for TBV on Twitter, it actually made a full presentation of all the times that, and correct me if I'm misquoting who the user is here, it made a full presentation of all the times that AG Eric Schmidt had referenced human trafficking in his campaign propaganda. So you tell me where his fucking priorities are. I'm just saying. It's about time, but yeah, nobody seems to be wanting to raise a finger for these kids. Now, that being said, there is one person who seems to be perfectly fine with raising their finger to help these kids. And that was the person who brought the story to my attention, because, again, I covered it a little bit. We discussed it, in a live stream, just briefly. I kind of shrugged it off, seeing what was going to happen, because, of course, I'm the world's worst journalist, and I obviously the world's worst newscaster, or news media person, if you will. In that I do also fall for the stance that, a good story has a beginning, middle, and end. Wherein I should have been a little bit more responsible and diligent in covering this story as it was evolving and bringing that information to you. And if, again, for the 15,000th fucking time when it comes to this story, I do apologize for that. But no apology needs to be given or accepted by Eric Garland, who is actually the one who brought this story to my attention. And let me see if I can zoom in just a little bit here without getting too weird. Now, the Kansas City Star actually covered part of his coverage on this Agape story and bringing this to light. Because again, A.G. Eric Schmidt was not interested in doing anything about this, about the abuse at Agape boarding school. It took him literally until the Twitter mob came after his ass and made being on social media a complete and utter nightmare before he even lifted one single finger to do anything about this. And that was literally like last week. Okay. So thank you to Eric Garland for bringing this to my attention. Now, some folks have been losing their ever-loving mind about Eric Garland. I honestly can't figure out if it's because he's refers to himself as a geopolitical analyst, or that he was the host of Game Theory Today podcast at one time. I really can't figure it out, but, I will say this. For the folks who have been referring to him as a dime store game theory version of Marty Hart being on the case, or that there are better sources on boarding school horrors than the clout demon doing soft QAnon, I will say this. The guy single-handedly was able to bring this story, and call social media what you will. The guy was able to, maybe not single-handedly, but to bring the story to more people on social media and Twitter by having his 300,000 followers plus or whatever. I didn't check it. I have to look again. But, to bring this story to folks, to make it public in such a way that conventional journalism just is not able to do, that actually had an effect, that actually did rally, the crowds, and actually did get some shit done. Got a lot more done, he fucking did, than me or any of those folks or any of the same, so-called community leaders who have been also losing their marbles and losing their hair and probably losing their eyesight, screaming at their TVs about performative activism for the last 6 months or, whatever. So maybe all of us should sit the fuck down and shut the fuck up and, learn something from him. So Eric Garland, hey, bro, my hat's off to you. It is what it is. Because, again, I didn't cover this story in depth as much as I probably should have. And I'm just going to assume that no one else, had either that has been talking all this shit. So, we'll just leave it at that. But the Kansas City Star did publish a letter to the editor, which sort of reflects that sentiment, without of course, referencing the Kansas City Star. But you take it for what it will. Without investigative journalism, Missouri boarding school would have kept on abusing, and that's very real. And without bringing that story to the forefront, it would have just been another story. Thank you to the Kansas City Star and its investigative journalists for uncovering the physical and sexual abuse of minors at Agape boarding school, which has been allowed to operate without state inspection and guidelines, thanks to Republican-controlled Missouri legislature. September 12th, kansascity.com, lawyers spar as Southwest Missouri judge again delays Agape boarding school closing. And while the Star was investigating these cases of physical and sexual abuse of minors that have since been determined factual, Missouri Attorney Eric Schmidt, Missouri Attorney General Eric Schmidt, there you go, was busy filling lawsuits against local school districts for requiring students to wear masks, protect them against a deadly virus. It's killed more than 21,000 people in Missouri. Again, thank you for this investigative journalism. And of course, his big push more recently has been, the CRT and all that fun stuff. But so we'll definitely keep you updated as this story continues to develop. It's only going to get more interesting from here, I assure you. And you can do your part by reaching out to your local indie media, folks there. Your local indie media teams, or whoever the fuck it is that you're watching on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, or whoever. Send them an email, reach out. I've actually had some new viewers who have reached out to some other indie media teams and helped me to reference other indie media folks that I was not aware of. The vast majority of folks do still watch corporate media, but we can't count on that. So if you want to see real change in your community, either start a podcast or fucking call somebody who already has one. Because clearly you're going to see a difference. But we'll leave it at that. When the coffee wears off and when the stress of the day becomes just too much to bear, I don't mind kicking back, putting on some tunes, maybe watching anything that isn't news related, and taking the edge off with some relaxing Sebe Day. And where does your boy Chainsaw go for all of his Sebe Day needs? Where else but Heads Up Smoke Shop in Willow Springs, Missouri. Heads Up carries hand pipes, water pipes, incense. You can apply at the kiosk for your medical card. Carry cigarettes, cigars, cigarette papers, t-shirts. They display local artist pieces, stickers, Sebe Day, Delta, Sebe Day, THO, HHC, a variety of options, gummies, drops, cartridges, you name it, and even puff bars. They got brands like Juicy, Coastal Cloud Juice, Nirvana brand flour, Dave's Doobies. So for your Sebe Day needs, head on down to Heads Up Smoke Shop in Willow Springs, Missouri, and tell them Chainsaw sent you. Or you can use my link at chainsawccc.com/headsup and get a bird's eye view of what's available and what's happening in the store. We'll see you there.